It's probably the best-looking car ever built, in my opinion.
But people weren't queuing up to buy Silver Shadows for the driving experience. Oh no, because those early cars had 3-speed gearboxes and skinny cross-ply tyres, so if you pushed them hard, they would behave in a most unbecoming, ungentlemanly way, slip, sliding, kneeling and lurching all over the place. But it didn't seem to matter, because the Shadow was destined not for people in Bradford, but for people in Beverly Hills, where things like roundabouts and bends were a charming European idiosyncrasy. No, the old Shad handles like a Lincoln Continental.
The American market was very important. Rolls-Royce had already made considerable inroads into the American market with the Silver Cloud, and it was becoming a very dominant market to work, and the Silver Shadow again had a considerable appeal in America. It was a very compact car by American standards. It nevertheless had a very wide appeal there. In the end, something like 25% of production was allocated to the American market.
The emergent glitterati of Hollywood singers and actors seized on the Silver Shadow as an essential badge of rank.
Well, you know, where I live, there's many, many Rolls Royces, you know.
This is LA.
In the Bel Air area, and Holmby Hills, actually, and Bel Air is like a mile away. And they all have these prestigious cars over there.
Instead of their traditional customers, Rolls-Royce went for the American dream and the boy done good. But in Britain, such an extravagant token of success wasn't so admired.
I was in Langham's restaurant one night, give him the name straight away, needed, chatting to lovely Michael Caine. And I was telling Michael Caine the story I'm telling you. So he said, you're right. He said, because it's like in America, if you've got a Rolls-Royce in America, Silver Shadow, Silver, whatever you want to call them, and you're down the street, they actually physically bubbler, they call the bubbler, he's a nice man, Michael, Jewish word, means permanent demon. Bubbler, he said, they would come on this corner of the road and they applaud you.
Literally clap.
Literally clap, literally. Yeah. I've never actually happened to me, but he said, I believe him, it's not a lie, Michael Caine. They love it, they love winners. In this country, Eric, what you're saying is right, they want to scratch it, they want to break your windows. He said, I would never have a Rolls Royce in England, never.
To appease the manic safety laws of the Americans, the Shadow 1 became the Shadow 2 in '77. There was a discreet, new front chin spoiler with lowered fog lamps. Less cluttered and more business-like dashboard and interior furnishings, plus rack and pinion steering, rubber bumpers, and over 2,000 subtle modifications. But it was all in vain, because by the early 80s, Britain was in the throes of recession, and it didn't pay to wear your wealth on your sleeve. The Shadow was a symbol of capitalism, and the working man didn't like it one little bit.
When people are suffering with no jobs and that, you don't feel comfortable riding around in one of these things that could buy 3 houses.
For the late 80s, the Shadow had hit rock bottom. It was socially unacceptable and did 12 miles to every gallon. Nobody wanted them. Prices bottomed. You could buy a very decent one for £5 and an absolute minter for 8. I can remember buying one for just £3,500 from a greengrocer in Manchester. You just couldn't sell them. The only people who were buying them were the Americans. And I would scour the country looking for pre-67 Shadows and ship them out to Texas. The Shadow had fallen from grace and taken the Rolls-Royce name with it.
This particular car, however successful it was the first mistake. It was a car that was too available. There were too many around. The owners became people who were not Rolls-Royce people, and they became quite kitsch in the end.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 drives good. Whoa, okay. Hello, Blackpool. Hello.
I'm a professional disc jockey, and as you're quite aware, I do travel around in my Rolls-Royce. And it's really impressive when you turn up at a gig and you start unloading your gear, getting ready. I mean, I can tell straight away they booked the right disco, and I'm a professional, and they're going to have a good time.
And these days, you can still buy one for £5,000 and get it back by putting your roller to work.
I chose Silver Shadows for my wedding business because they're the most suitable vehicles for the purpose. People like this sort of car for their special day.
I put the speakers in the boot, light equipment in the back, and the amplifier and the twin CD units on the passenger seat in the front.
when the bride and groom come out of the church after they've got married and they get into the car, despite everything else that they've got on their minds, they still have time to comment on the luxury of the car and the splendour of the vehicle that they're sitting in.
Prices have come down, and I think everyday people like you and me actually get a chance to, if one wishes, to actually go ahead and own one.
They haven't come across this type of vehicle before, not at close quarters. They come and sit in the car, they look at it, and they're absolutely astounded at the interior, the carpets, the leather, the headlining, the fascia, the walnut. Everything in the vehicle is first-class materials.
The main features on the car that I like is the stereo. With me being a DJ, it's got a fantastic stereo, really blast it.
It's a pleasure to drive these vehicles. They're respected on the roads. They get a lot of recognition by all walks of life.
The man has a point. Age has mellowed the Silver Shadow into the epitome of elegance. There's still no other car that has the same sort of presence and gentility as a well-kept Shad. Just compare it to the new Silver Seraph, and you'll see what I mean, because it's all in that classical shape. No contest.
I think the shape now is not as good as what the Silver Shadows are.
I think it's lovely.
He's only after a new car. He's after a new car. He's after a new car. I'm telling you the truth. The shape is not as good as that. Look at that shape. It's a Silver Shadow. The special. The shape is not the same.
But why are they special?
Why have you changed it? Don't stop it.
Why are they special? Tell me why they're special. Don't get manic about it. It's only a Rolls Royce at the end of the day.
Calm down. It's only an interview.
Exactly.
Anyway,
go back to it, boys. Let's go back to what we were talking about now.
Thank you, Tommy. Believe it or not, the Shadow has become rather hip. Oasis dropped one in a pool on their album cover. Noel Gallagher's record company bought him one. He can't drive, but he still loves it. And indie band James wouldn't be seen in anything else. Why?
Because when you see one casually abandoned in the street like this is Holland Park in London, you can see that this car looks better the older it gets. It has a chaste, unadorned simplicity. And I'm going to make an apocalyptic prediction here. Very soon, men with beards and woolly jumpers will be nodding sagely and calling that a classic. The Silver Shadow is set for Renaissance.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Downtown, just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the...
Right, we're going to finish off the show with a rather appropriate song. It's Me on My Shadow. Sing along if you know the words. Come on now. Here we go. Me and my
shadow,
strolling down the avenue, boop-de-doop-de-doop. Me and my shadow, not a soul to tell my troubles to.
Me and my shadow. Engelbert, eat your heart out.
Danced, not a soul to tell my troubles to. And when it's... That's enough.